Okay, so I get that it's cool for Ridley Scott to respond to these historians who are worried about the historical accuracies of this film by saying things like, well, who cares what you guys think? It's a movie. I'm going to make it my way. It's going to be epic. It's going to be big. It doesn't have to be historically accurate all the way through. And he's acting like he's leading us cinephiles and fans of Ridley Scott movies into war with these historians based on these historical accuracies. He's acting like he's literally leading a charge against all the historians who have a problem with the historical accuracies of this film. Well, the historians may have had a point, because I feel like if you would have just did more than just a Wikipedia search on Napoleon, this movie would have been a lot more interesting than it was. I feel like all Ridley Scott did was go on Wikipedia, find all of Napoleon's famous battles, said we're going to shoot all of those, and then he found maybe like 3 facts about his life and was like, all right, we'll only need those for the story, and we'll just make this movie. It'll be fine, we can put it together, and it'll be 2 hours and 37 minutes. Nobody will notice nobody will notice how dry the actual plot is, because the battle scenes will be so amazing. No, I noticed. This movie is not good. And honestly, it's not only like severely disappointing, but it's just not a good movie. It's just not. And a lot of people may disagree with that. But that's why film is so subjective. And, well, guys, this is my review for Napoleon. Hey guys, it's your guy in the chair here, and look, this is my review for Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Vanessa Kirby, I think his name is Matthew Needham, and yourself Kirkor. French names, or foreign names. And it was directed by Ridley Scott, and our plot, as best as I can describe it, is basically us following the highlights of Napoleon Bonaparte's life. And why I say highlights, because this movie does not give us a cohesive narrative to actually follow through. We are literally just beginning with this guy at the lower ranks of whatever military status you are at the bottom, and then we're just watching him gradually move up through the ranks, while at the same time going through a bunch of epic battle scenes that he has, conquered over his lifespan. And then in between that is just basically his obsession with his yes, you could, they're lovers in a sense, but like, this is the worst definition of love I've ever seen in my life. This is just a very unhealthy obsession that I'm watching here happen on screen between him and Josephine. And basically we're just watching, I honestly call this a greatest hits. We're watching a Napoleon greatest hits be played out on screen. Like, I know that's a shitty way to describe the plot, but there really is no plot here. It's really just this guy has started on the lower ranks of the military. He met Josephine, is having an unhealthy obsession with her throughout this entire film, and then in between all that is the battle sequences. And that's really just what this movie is. It's really just grand, epic, out of this world cinematic battle sequences, and then just in between it's either him spending 3 to 5 minutes conquering a town, making an alliance, and then or him just being able to move up in the ranks, or him becoming, in the process of becoming the emperor. And then after that we spend 12 to maybe 17 minutes in between battle sequences just watching him and Josephine sit on a fucking couch and act like they haven't eaten for days, and just be so depressed and just talk about the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And it's just doesn't really amount to anything. But I know that was a very terrible way to describe the plot, but that's the best way I can, because for me personally, there really is no plot here. It's really nothing to really follow here, but just this man's unhealthy obsession with Josephine and watching him just move up in the ranks and becoming emperor. And then we're basically watching the rise and fall of Napoleon, but it happens so damn fast. And I put fast in quotations because it really just happens in like a blink of an eye. You blink it, you miss it. But that is what this movie is. And honestly, now I'm just going to talk about what I like and what I definitely did not like about this movie. So let's get into it. All right. So as far as what I liked about the film, I 100% absolutely loved the battle sequences. The battle sequences in this movie are absolutely jaw-dropping. And I mean that in every sense of the word. They are absolutely astounding. And I mean in every sense of the way you put a scene together. Cinematography, the score, the acting, the explosions, like just everything just feels like a grand, massive, epic battle every time you're watching one of these things unfold on screen. And Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon is killing it in those sequences for sure. And honestly, throughout the film, Joaquin Phoenix did not do a bad job. Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. He's not like he didn't do a bad job as playing Napoleon whatsoever. But look, I get to what I didn't like about the movie in just a second. But let me explain to you guys. The battle sequences in this film alone they're worth the price of admission. And honestly, I feel like you have to experience sequences like this in theaters, because just being in a theater, watching it on the big screen, watching this, like, especially hearing the score of these battle sequences, like, you really feel like you're on the front lines here, and you really feel like you're in the midst of all the action, and it just feels like some of the greatest battle reenactments. I say reenactments because I mean this isn't really happening, but it feels like it would have been a lot of fun to be out there on the battle scenes in this film. And it's just really cool to see Napoleon in his I'll say in his natural habitat, which is war, because he was a great general. He loved war. He loved conquering things. And when all of that is going on, when the battle scenes are going on, strictly the battle scenes, when those are going on, you are here for the Napoleon movie that you paid for. But that is only, I'm going to say, maybe 40 to 50 minutes of the movie. And I'd say probably like 40 to 50 minutes of the film is the actual battle sequences. This thing is 2 hours and 37 minutes. So for the rest of that time, in between all these battle sequences, and I caught on to this very early, the battle, okay, let me make sure I explain my points pretty well. So in between all the battle sequences, when none of the battles are going on, and you're just watching either, like I said, the 3 to 5 minutes of him trying to make an alliance or be betrayed or try to move up in the ranks, or not try, but move up in the ranks, or, he's conquering some land. It's 3 to 5 minutes of that in between, each battle sequence, and then 12 to 17 minutes of him just being very unhealthily, if that's a word, obsessed over Josephine, Vanessa Kirby's character. And all of that is a crock of horse shit. That like everything in between the battle sequences is a bunch of BS. And on top of that, like I said, the battle sequences are 40 to 50 minutes. So for the rest of this time, you are watching like an hour and however many minutes of that is left of just a bunch of nonsense, in my opinion. Just a bunch of randomly put together scenes that really just come together to compile a greatest hits list. This is not a very well thoroughly thought out narrative, and this is not a story that you could really easily follow and honestly understand the reason why Napoleon is doing any of this in the first place. I mean, this thing is just all over the place as far as the narrative goes. It's really messy. It's really just dry dialogue. It's really boring, in my opinion. I mean, it feels like two completely different movies. When you're watching the battle sequences, you are there for the Napoleon movie that the trailers had promised you, and you are there for you're basically there for everything that the trailers promised you when you're watching the battle sequences. But the other movie that this feels like is Napoleon Bonaparte, the very soap opera-y dramatic porno. That's what this other part of the movie is. I can't even say other half, because half of this movie is not even the battle sequences. A majority of this movie is watching this dude just be very unhealthily obsessed over Vanessa Kirby's character, which Vanessa Kirby's gorgeous. I get it. I understand. And even if, and like I said, the only stuff I really know about Napoleon Bonaparte is basically what I learned from Time Warp Trio. Shout out to that show. But I learned more about Napoleon Bonaparte in 30 minutes of that show than I did in 2 hours and 30 minutes of this. Like, I already knew he was a great general, And I already knew that this guy conquered certain lands, and this dude just was able to move up through the ranks, and he was a very insecure, he was a very short-tempered man, and he was, somebody who a lot of people looked down on him, literally and figuratively, and he did not appreciate that, and that's what motivated him to move up through the ranks. But this movie does not give you any sort of narrative to do more than just imply these things. Like, let me focus on this relationship between Vanessa Kirby and Joaquin Phoenix. And let me say this. I really do appreciate what Vanessa Kirby did in this movie, because she did a lot with what little she was given. Like, her character is, at the core of it, just a manipulative whore. And to be honest, Vanessa Kirby should be much more than that. I feel like her character could have been much more complex. She could have done a lot more with her character than just literally do the same things in a repeated cycle. This movie literally just follows a cycle of the same thing throughout the entirety of the film. It's literally just a battle scene, 3 to 5 minutes of Napoleon conquering, making an alliance, feeling betrayed, doing something like that, and then 12 to 17 minutes of him and Josephine's just wacky ass relationship, or cringy ass sex scenes, or just whatever else the hell is going on. It's just that, and then we're back to a battle scene again. There is no build up to these battle sequences except for the Battle of Waterloo. That's at the end of the film. Like, that was the only battle that actually felt like they had some sort of build up towards that. But the rest of these battles have no build up whatsoever. They have absolutely just no narrative as to why he's doing any of this in the first place. It's kind of just like, to refer to the tagline of the film. It says he came from nothing, but he conquered everything. That's not necessarily what this movie is at all. I mean, the he came from nothing part, I didn't see that whatsoever. Like I said, we literally begin with this guy at the lower ranks of the military. Like, we're not seeing him from a young age just be looked down upon, be bullied. We're not watching this dude come from nothing, per se. I mean, if you want to call the lower ranks of the military nothing, okay, you can do what you want, but that's not, to me, coming from nothing. That's literally just started from the bottom. Now you're here. Like, that's literally what this movie feels like throughout the entire thing. We started from the bottom, and now we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here. Like, the movie's just randomly going through just what you would honestly find on Wikipedia for Napoleon's life. Like, I truly don't think Ridley Scott knew enough about this guy to actually make a complete and total narrative, an actual, like, cohesive story that we could actually emotionally empathize with. And I know maybe some people are thinking, why would we want to emotionally empathize with Napoleon? Look, it's a Napoleon movie, so I would at least like to know the reasons as to why this man is so motivated to conquer everything. It's kind of just like, like I said, everything in my opinion is just implied throughout the film. Like, after he conquers a land, per se, or after he wins a battle, it's like he's never truly satisfied with that. But you can only tell that by, like, his facial expressions, or the fact that his actions are just literally running back to Josephine and just trying to, oh God, literally just chase her tail around the entire freaking house or whatever, and she's just not even remotely interested. When I tell you that this is the most just ridiculous relationship displayed on screen since maybe those fucking After movies, like, this is just bad. This is bad. Like, I don't know if other audience members could honestly explain to me what his obsession was with this woman in the first place, other than the fact that it's Vanessa Kirby. But truly, like, the way that these two meet in the film, they literally just meet, and then the very next scene, or a scene and a half later, this man is just head over heels and completely obsessed. And when I tell you, them meeting was not even that special. There wasn't sparks. There wasn't even a fantasized version in Napoleon's perspective of what we see, what he sees in her. So, like, us as audience members, we're not necessarily being able to get, like, from Napoleon's perspective, oh, he thought that she was this at first, and she was this gracious, just beautiful soul that he completely just fell head over heels with. Like, for example, the Priscilla movie that came out, not earlier this year, but the Priscilla movie that just came out recently, with the toxic toxic relationship or the toxic viewpoints of the Priscilla and Elvis relationship. For the first half of that movie, or for a good portion of the first half of that movie, from Priscilla's perspective, you are seeing why she fell in love with Elvis in the first place. You're like, I get it. Before we start getting to the toxicity and stuff, you're like, wow, I actually get it. I actually understand why she fell head over heels for this guy, other than the fact that it's Elvis Presley. I actually get it. There's a romanticized, fantasized version of their relationship in the beginning of that film. This movie does not have that. This movie is just skipping to him just completely being head over heels for her. Just madly in love. And I'm not going to lie to you, the way that it's displayed in the film is literally just her showing her vagina to him. She literally just opens her legs, says, hey, look, I had 2 kids in prison, and I had to do what I had to do to survive, but you'll never find pussy like this on the Eastern Seaboard ever. So just know that when you start to hit this, it's yours. It's yours forever. And that's not what she sounds like in the movie, but I just... I just had to give some sort of accent. Not that I have a problem with, them not having accents in the film, really. They're all just talking like themselves, except some characters they're trying. The accent thing really didn't bother me much. Like the fact that this movie just has really no cohesive story whatsoever really bothered me a lot. And it's just very boring. Like, I get it. Napoleon was a very insecure guy. He was very short-tempered. He was someone who... had a lot of insecurities about himself, and I understand that, but like the way that it's just executed in this film is bad. It's really bad. Like I don't understand what Ridley Scott was thinking in this film. Like truly, like I'll even say this. Look, beyond just the Vanessa Kirby stuff. Well, actually, a lot of this stuff has to do with Vanessa Kirby's character, because this dude literally, at one point in the film, I really thought that we were going to start moving away from the Vanessa Kirby stuff, because something happens to where it's like, oh, shoot, okay, now I can probably learn more about this guy during his time alone and when he's not obsessing over Vanessa Kirby. But literally, 2 scenes later, after what I had thought was them just going to be taking a break for a second, he's right back in front of her door just obsessing over again, and that's the rest of the film. And it's like... Napoleon is so much more than this, man. Like, if you're going to argue with historians about how historically accurate this movie is, you can at least make the characters a lot more interesting than they were. Napoleon Bonaparte should be a lot more interesting than he was. He was just a whiny little, he's a whiny little bitch who was pussy whipped. And look, I get it. It's Vanessa Kirby. I get it. It's Vanessa Kirby who wouldn't necessarily be pussy whipped over her for a little bit, but this dude is an emperor. This dude, and like women being strong men empowers weakness has been a tale as old as time. That has happened in so many different stories, and I get it. Women have been the downfall of a lot of powerful men, or women have just tried to manipulate very powerful men and bring them down. But it's like that's not even what's going on here. I mean, it is, but it's going on in a way that is just really very dull, lifeless. It's boring. Like I said, they literally are having the same conversation 75 different ways, 75 different times. And I commend Vanessa Kirby for at least bringing some sort of emotion and some sort of life to this character, because truly, at the core of her character, like I said, she was just a manipulative whore, and Vanessa Kirby should be so much more than that. Vanessa Kirby, there should be at least some sort of scenes or some sort of narratives where in the background she's trying to scheme, trying to plan to literally take over the throne, maybe put somebody else in power, do something. I mean, even if that is what's going on in the movie, they never follow through on any of that stuff. This movie does a lot of touching and leaving. This movie touches on a lot of points and either just does not refer back to them at all for the rest of the film, or they just touch on it. Maybe they'll bring it up for a second later on in the movie, but it never becomes any pivotal, it just never has any payoff. This movie does not have a lot of narrative payoff whatsoever. Like in movies like Braveheart, there's a build up before battles. Like you can act, even for a second, when this dude falls in love with this woman, we can see why. I never understood why this dude was obsessed with this woman, other than the fact that she kept showing him his vagina. I don't think that's enough for me to just go, okay, cool, yeah, I get it, I understand. Like, literally, there's so many different examples in movies, and honestly, Ridley Scott's movies. In American Gangster, in the beginning of that movie with Frank Lucas, we understand his why because they took the time in the beginning of the film, even if it's not for a long time, they took time in the beginning of the film to really let you as audience members understand just how important his mentor Bunky Johnson was to him and why Frank Lucas did what he did throughout the rest of this film, because he wanted to live up to Bunky. He wanted to honor his mentor's legacy. Like, we understand why. There is no why in this movie whatsoever other than the fact that you just know who Napoleon is and you know what he did and you know what he's done, you know what he's conquered. Like, there's not really anybody in the film really challenging him as far as like, making fun of his height. There's nobody really looking down on him throughout the film. He's literally just battling, taking shit over, and just moving up in the ranks. There's no build up. There's no reason why. We don't even get to sit with the achievements afterwards because he's just running after Josephine. I want to point out something that that French critics described this movie as, which I 100% agreed with. Look, they said that this movie is lazy, it's pointless, it's boring, it's migraine inducing, and it's too short in terms of an actual narrative going on here. I agree with all of that. This movie is so lazily put together, and I mean by just strictly story standpoints, because like I said, the battle sequences are absolutely astounding, but the battle sequences were trying to hide the fact that the rest of this movie is pure crap. The battle sequence on the ice, that was absolutely the best scene in the movie. That was absolutely just having me on the edge of my seat, and I was like, oh my gosh. But literally, once the battle sequences are over, at the moment they are over, you feel like you are literally thrown into an entirely different movie that you did not pay for. I just don't understand what Ridley Scott was thinking here, and I really don't think he knew how to make Napoleon and Josephine's toxic relationship at least somewhat interesting to the audience, because for me, I was really tired of these two by maybe like the fourth scene that they were in together, and that was probably like 30 or 40 minutes into the movie, man. I was tired of these two very early. And look, I get it. Toxic relationships are not supposed to be something you should be emotionally empathizing with, but you as an audience member should at least see what the other person sees in the other. These two, Vanessa Kirby. And like I said, this is not her fault whatsoever, but Vanessa Kirby's character, Josephine, literally shows no interest in this dude after the fact that they got married. And maybe that's just how it was supposed to go, but I'm telling you, they get married so early in the film. We really don't spend much time with these two relationship-wise, seeing her at least fake fall in love and seeing him actually fall in love. It's just, we are literally at one point they just meet, at the next point he's already completely obsessed, they're getting married, and at that point they don't even like each other anymore. Well, he still loves her, he's always writing her, and oh my god, those letters that he's writing to her the whole time, they were so annoying, because who cares? I don't care enough about their relationship to sit here and listen to you just mope and whine over Josephine the entire time. The dude even left one of the battle stations to come home because his wife was cheating on it. Like, I don't care. Like, I really, really don't care. And some of that makes for maybe some funny scenes in the movie, but it's just like, at the end of the day, I really don't care. And as far as the letters being written and read over back and forth, there's probably like 7 or 8 letters by Napoleon, 3 by Josephine, and they all came at the end. Like I said, Josephine was a horrible person, literally from the moment we met her. They never follow through on anything. There is a very pivotal thing that happens in the film, and it's the entire point of why, well, it's not the entire point of why he's so mad at Josephine, but he's really mad at her because of multiple reasons: that she cheats on him all the time, that she can't bear a child, and it's just, once something actually happens in the film and he gets what he's been yearning for, they just never bring that back up again. And I don't necessarily know what happened. Maybe I missed that, but that's the other thing in this movie. If you blink, or if you just like stop paying attention for a second and just start thinking about the bullshit that you're watching, like before whatever point you're in the movie, if you're taken out of the movie for just like a second, you feel like you completely miss something because things just happen so rapidly and so randomly in the film. It's like, are we even trying to like put together an actual story here? Like, are we actually trying to have audiences follow what's going on, or are we just like throwing stuff in here and just saying, yeah, this is Napoleon's life, let's just get this on out here. Oh, but here are the battle sequences. Oh yeah, this is going to distract you 100% from what this crappy narrative is. Didn't distract me whatsoever, and I was just thoroughly disappointed by what happened in this film. Let me see if I have any other notes on this. Not necessarily. Yeah, a lot of it just has to deal with just this crazy, unhealthy relationship between the two of Napoleon and Josephine, and just how personally you can do toxic relationships so much better than this. Like, at least have people understand and empathize with Napoleon about why he was in love with this woman in the first place. You don't give us that. We really don't have any of the morals and values Napoleon stood on. I don't really understand why people followed this man into the war, other than the fact that he was just a powerful general and emperor. And while that may be okay for some people, I mean, this is a Napoleon biopic. This is a story about the man's life. I would like to understand why people wanted to follow this guy into war. I did not get that whatsoever, other than the fact that he was just a very high-ranking general and became the emperor at some point. So why wouldn't we follow the guy in the battle? But it should be so much more than that. I should get some sort of motivational speech. I should get some sort of something to have me hype following this man in the battle. Although he led a lot of men to their death, I should have to, as an audience member, understand why I would want to be led into death by this man. Like, other than the fact that he's a great general and he just wants to, and he outsmarts people, which is definitely shown in various different ways, but it's just like sometimes he's just being silly about it, which Napoleon, yeah, definitely was a silly little man at times. Like, he felt like he was always the smartest guy in the room, which honestly at most points was probably true. Was definitely, honestly, at a lot of points was probably true, but it's just the way that Ridley Scott has this all play out in the film is just very random. It doesn't really, hold for a very strong narrative whatsoever. You don't really learn much about Napoleon. If anything, you're coming out just thinking this dude was a whiny little bitch, like, the entire time. And that's really all you're getting from this movie, man. Like, it's just very disappointing. Whoever the big bad is by the end of this film literally just popped up out of nowhere. That's the thing. It's like there's no cohesive villain. There's just no, like, this guy literally in the film, he makes an alliance with some guy from Russia, and then 2 scenes later he's writing to Josephine talking about he's going to war with this guy because he betrayed him. And I'm like, did I miss something? When did that happen? Like, you were just with Josephine crying about, you're not being able to hit it right just a second ago. What is going on here? It's just, this movie's all over the place. And maybe, my thoughts on this review are probably all over the place too, but it is what it is. That's what, my mind is kind of all over the place right now, but that's literally what this movie is. It's just all over the place, and the battle sequences are just trying to literally distract you from the fact that there really is no narrative here. There really is no story. And while Josephine played a very pivotal part in this man's life, one of my friends told me, he was like, yeah, after reading up on Josephine, I understood why she was so important in the movie. We should not have to leave the theater and read up on Napoleon and then go, oh, okay, then that's why she was... No! Show us in the movie! We paid to see you tell us that story, not us leave and go, oh, okay, this is why it was so... Like, no, when you're watching biopics and then you leave and you read up on the man, you should honestly be able to connect scenes to what you're reading. What I'm reading on Napoleon's life was not shown in this movie whatsoever. It was only implied. But look, Napoleon, as far as I'm concerned, guys, is definitely one of the most disappointing movies of the year. Other than the battle sequences, as amazing as they were, they could not distract me from the fact that the rest of this thing is a pile of crap, in my opinion, and just randomly put together scenes. It's well acted to an extent, just because the way the characters are written really annoyed me. Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby do a great job. Vanessa Kirby honestly did a really good job. I'm not going to lie to you. As much as I did not like the character of Josephine, Vanessa Kirby really did a lot with the very little she was given. She could have been much more of a complex character, but they just really limited her and what she was able to do in this film. But her being the amazing actress that she is, she did everything she could to make sure that we felt something, I guess, towards the character. But I just mean like she really brought a lot of emotion to the character and was doing a very good job when she was acting. But other than that, man, this narrative is wacky. This plot is all over the place. It's just not necessarily what I was expecting from Ridley Scott. And I know Ridley Scott has kind of had this. I mean, look, I absolutely adored The Last Duel. Some people, for some reason, I heard don't like that movie, but The Last Duel, in my opinion, is awesome. But the complaints that a lot of people were having about The House of Gucci, I actually see in this film here. And, well, look, like I said, guys, this movie was just thoroughly disappointing to me. I didn't necessarily like it that much. I didn't think it was a good movie, but let me know in the comments what you think, because for all those reasons and so many more, guys, I'm going to give Napoleon a 2.75 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, so Napoleon, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Look, if you enjoyed this movie, if it's going to end up in your top 10 of the year, I have no idea how, but it's your top 10 list. It's your. I'm only saying that because I've seen it in some people's top 10 lists on Twitter, and I'm just like, I don't know what movie you watched, but hey, to each their own. So look, I do really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that stuff and so much more. Comment below your actual thoughts on the movie. What did you think? Do you think Ridley Scott is kind of going a little downhill? Because with The House of Gucci and this, it's kind of going in a downhill steep. But I think The Last Duel released after House of Gucci, and I absolutely adored The Last Duel. Actually, I'm not sure which order those movies released in, but look, The Last Duel is freaking amazing in my opinion. House of Gucci's okay. This movie was just not good in my opinion. This is honestly probably on one of the lower ends of Ridley Scott's movies, but let me know in the comments below, guys. I really do appreciate you for watching. Thank you so much. Look, this is your guy in the chair. More content coming to you soon.